Mitch Lawrence, Sirius XM NBA radio, sporting news, Forbes. We talk NBA playoffs now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Mitch, we got some really intriguing matchups. Obviously, Oklahoma City, Houston in round number one. I mean, the basketball gods, after players resting, teams tanking, they said, have that one in round number one.
Right. Everybody's got to remember, the MVP ballots have already been cast, right? This is not going to determine who's going to be the MVP, although I think it should be Russell Westbrook, because when you've had a historic season like he has, and he got 46 wins, which is only 5 less than LeBron, only about 7 or 8 less than James Harden, considering what he has to play with, considering all those triple-doubles he needed for them to get into sixth place, the loss of Kevin Durant, and on and on and on. I think it'll be a close vote. I think Westbrook deserves it.
Mitch, we just debated hardcore before you came on. Cleveland's the 2 seed. They're going to play the Pacers. Can Cleveland flip the switch defensively and get themselves easily through the East? Maybe many people think they can get through the East and get to the finals, but will it be a battle, or will they breeze through these Eastern Conference playoffs?
No, I think we've seen it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. It might even be a battle. I mean, it's funny. I've talked to scouts and GMs about Indiana. Some think it'll still be a breeze. Others think Paul George can make it tough on them. Guys like Paul George, Miles Turner, they got experience. But I think what we've seen, guys, from down the stretch from the Cavs is defensively they're shambles. They can still outscore people. I mean, let's not forget, LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, they set three-point records last year in the playoffs. So that might be their route here rather than defensively, because let's face it, who are they facing in the East? They're not facing Golden State. Who are they facing in the East that can fill it up? Boston can't score. Toronto has problems. You could say the Wizards, they're not very deep. There just aren't a lot of great scoring teams in the East for the Cavs to have to worry about.
Yeah, and Cleveland giving up 107 points a game. We'll see if LeBron can get that group to play better defense here. Do you think that's the big storyline in the East, the Cavaliers' defense?
The big storyline in the East is what team out of Toronto, Boston, and Washington can actually force Cleveland to a 7th game. That's the big story to me. Can Toronto in the second round? Maybe. With Ibaka and P.J. Tucker, a lot of people think that they're primed to do that. I don't think Boston can if they play Cleveland, and I don't think Washington can, even with the great year that John Wall and Bradley Beal has had. I think that is really the compelling story in the East, is not who can beat Cleveland. I still think they're better than other people. LeBron and Kyrie can close out games down the stretch. Late in the shot clock, they can bail them out better than anybody else on any other team. But really, is there a team that could really push them? I think it's going to be Toronto. I look at Toronto, and I think, you know what? They've got enough to push them, but just like, Indiana was a few years ago when LeBron was on Miami, they couldn't just get by. They didn't have quite enough to get by the big three in Miami with Indiana back then. I kind of look at Toronto the same way.
Milwaukee, Toronto. I know Toronto you're talking about, but can Milwaukee give them a scare and maybe pull off an upset?
I'll give you a little preview, guys. I just did something for Sporting News. Hopefully they're going to run it in the next day or two. I'm looking at 5 guys who are playoff rookies, okay? And some of them have been in the league for a while, like Rudy Gobert, like P.J. Tucker. But Malcolm Brogdon is an honest-to-goodness rookie now. He's 24. He's the Bucks point guard, and he has a very interesting assignment for his first playoffs. He's got to go against Kyle Lowry. And, if you looked at what the Bucks did, at one point they were 7 games under 500 in March, and all of a sudden with Brogdon as the starter, they went on a great run. They won 14 out of 17. Jason Kidd loves him. Jason Kidd told me, when I told Jason Kidd, you need an upgrade at point guard, he looked at me and said, you're nuts. This guy's going to be really good. So you got to take Jason Kidd's word for it, because he himself's a Hall of Fame playmaker. Brogdon's going to be a very interesting story, what he can do against Lowry, what the Bucks can do with the Greek Freak and Middleton against Toronto. I mean, no, I don't think anybody thinks they're going to beat them, but I think because of Antetokounmpo, people think, like, you know what, they got a big-time star of the future. Maybe they can push him a little bit. That's going to be interesting because, as we know, Toronto went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and if they fall short this year against Milwaukee and take a step back, that is a real blow to that whole franchise.
Mitch Lawrence, Sirius XM NBA radio, Forbes, Sporting News. Chicago have any shot? Are they thrilled that they saw Boston in this? Like, can you think that Dwayne Wade can say, you know what, we can do something with this matchup?
They probably think they can because, Boston's undersized. They don't have rim protection. They probably feel like they can get some baskets against them. They'll both struggle to score, let's face it. Isaiah Thomas at 5'9", he's not Allen Iverson. If you're undersized, unless you're Allen Iverson, you know what, these players can't get these teams deep in the playoffs. I mean, Isaiah Thomas hasn't gotten Boston out of the first round. So I got to think Chicago's got to be very happy that they're not seeing Cleveland. And they're seeing a Boston team that definitely has some flaws. Yeah, they got all Al Horford, and he's fine, but he doesn't move the playoff needle. The big question to me is Rondo. What's he going to do? Can he play? Is he going to play with that wrist thing? That'd be great to see him go into Boston and try to upset his old team.
Yes, I like the breakdown on that one with Mitch Lawrence here. Over in the West, we've got I think will be fun. Golden State, Portland. Can Portland sneak a game in? I mean, can they get one if if we're looking for a 5-gamer there? Is that all we're hoping for Portland? I love that Portland team. I don't know how they're only 500. I love watching them play.
Well, they're 500 because they can't stop anybody. And when you can't stop anybody and you got to play the Warriors, you're looking at a sweep probably. That's the problem. I mean, if Steph Curry plays the same way he did when Durant was out for those 19 games where he was like an MVP player, again, he asserted himself, he was aggressive, he wasn't in deferential mode, Portland's got no shot. They got Lillard. He can have a huge game. We've seen that in the past. But really, this is not a good matchup for any. Look, nobody's a good matchup for Golden State. I mean, I'm wondering who can get a game or two off them, even in the West with the Spurs. You know what? Even if they play the Spurs. So, I mean, right now, as the way it all lines up, and Las Vegas is behind me 100% on this. They are the prohibitive favorite, Golden State. The big question is how many games they're going to lose in the playoff run that they're going to have.
Yeah, that just should be a lot of fun watching those two backcourts go at each other, Portland and Golden State.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Spurs, I think we all anticipate. Memphis seemingly, gives everybody a tough, series, but this isn't the year for them, right?
Well, you know what? Memphis is one of those teams. They're an outlier. They kind of play old style. I know their coach, first-year guy, Dave Fizdale, came in and had them shoot more threes and stuff, but they're rugged and bruising and a physical team, a throwback team. So playoff basketball is kind of made for them. I want to see what Kawhi Leonard does here. I thought last year in the playoffs he had a real rough time. They lost to Oklahoma City after jumping out on that series. He and LaMarcus Aldridge. To me, they got even though Kawhi Leonard's been a Finals MVP. He still, to me, has a lot of proving to do in terms of can he be the closer that the Spurs need, that Duncan's gone. And, of course, Duncan really never had that role late anyway. But I think that, when we look at the Spurs and we look at, the post-Duncan era, you think, all right, it's going to be Kawhi Leonard. Well, can he close out these big playoff games in the big spot late? I don't know. I kind of have my doubts about that, but he could prove me wrong, right?
Yeah, that one should be fun just to see as you said, Leonard, to see if he takes that jump and becomes that big-time star. Oklahoma City, Houston, we start with that one. Wow. But how about the way these two teams are? Houston doesn't play a lot of defense, so is the playoffs built for them?
Well, I think it is in this round. I just think they got too much firepower for Oklahoma City. I think Westbrook is probably going to set records in terms of shot attempts and shot misses, and I can't blame him. He's really got no help. But, I mean, you know what? With Harden playing the way he's played, and they've got that D'Antoni offense running with three-point shooters left and right, and they come at you with Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon and Lou Williams and Trevor Ariza with James Harden, go small, and they're going to put up a lot of points. I just don't know if Oklahoma City can stay with them. I mean, and the thing here's the thing I love about Houston, guys. We know they're not a great defensive team. They try to play better defense this year, and even James Harden's been committed. But I love the attitude that they had at the trade deadline when they brought in Lou Williams. People are like, they're nuts. They're going for more offense. Well, you know what? They're going to fight fire with fire. Their whole thing is when we play Golden State in the playoffs, we know we can't stop them.
Right.
We're going to try to outscore them. I got to give them credit for looking at their shortcomings and saying, you know what, let's play to our strengths. Let's get some more firepower on the floor, and let's try to win some games 130 to 128.
We're talking with Mitch Lawrence here. All right, 51-31 L.A., 51-31 Utah, 29-12 at home L.A., 29-12 Utah. They're both identical. This is a mirror image of each other. L.A. and Utah. Are they really mirror images?
Well, look, one team's got all the pressure on the world on them, man. You know that is. That's the Clippers. I mean, look, the Jazz, they want to make the playoffs. They want to get home court. They fell short of that. But, look, this is all about Doc Rivers and all about Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. They've had so many playoff problems. They've had collapses like we saw a couple of years ago, these monumental playoff historical losses where it looks like they're finally going to get out of the second round. They never do. All the pressure's on them in this series, not because they have the home court, but because they're at a crossroads. We all think if, they don't do it this year, they're going to have to blow the team up. Now, what I've heard is that, you know what, Chris Paul's already got his extension agreement with them and he'll stay. But who's to say Steve Ballmer doesn't tell Doc Rivers, I'll see you later if they lose in this first round? Who's to say they resign Blake Griffin? Maybe let him go or change things up because they've had so many problems despite having some good regular seasons, some strong regular seasons. They're expected to get out of this first round. Will they? I don't know. One thing to remember about Utah, they've only had their starting lineup on the floor for like 13 games all year long, and they still won the division. They got Hayward, who's going to be a free agent. George Hill's going to be a free agent. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. The guy to watch here, and the matchup to watch here, Rudy Gobert, who just loves to talk and thinks the world of himself. He's going up against DeAndre Jordan in a real – this is going to be a great, fun thing to have two big-time centers go at it, you know, head-to-head. And Gobert's got a lot to say, and we know DeAndre Jordan doesn't back down. That's a real great matchup to watch in the first round.
All right, that's a look at the playoffs. Mitch Lawrence over at Sporting News. You had your top 10 stories. Just give us an overview of some of the stories from this NBA season that really stood out.
Well, really, the top 10 stories for me, I mean, for your guys and the interest you have down there, in your way, I thought Philadelphia, their brief little, run to – they had this brief little moment when we saw Joel Embiid play and the impact he had, and we all got excited. And then this knee injury happened, and now we're back to, what is he going to be able to do in the future? What is Ben Simmons going to be able to do? I think I read that story somewhere 7, 8, 9 in there. Of course, my big story here was, again, Phil Jackson pushing all the wrong buttons. And by the way, he's back. The Knicks exercised their option to bring him back for a couple of more years. I'm sure Knicks fans are thrilled about that. But really the top story has got to be the Russell Westbrook thing. I mean, here, guys, the Thunder were never followed this closely when they had Kevin Durant with Russell Westbrook. And this year, especially down the last, 5, 6 weeks of the season, it all became all about Russell Westbrook and the quest to match Oscar Robertson, the only guy to, average a triple-double and on and on. To me, though, it's the winning that really separated that. I mean, look, they finished with 46 wins, which isn't a huge total, but it's still pretty good considering he's got no help around him, considering they built that team to have Kevin Durant with them, and for what Russell Westbrook did, and basically captivating. I mean, he was the story of the NBA in a lot of ways the last few weeks. I thought that was tremendous, and that was my number one story.
Mitch Lawrence, do you have an upset? Do you predict an upset in round one?
Atlanta over Washington.
Woo!
Yeah,
that's the
Atlanta,
one team that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Something happened. Something has finally clicked for the Hawks here. I don't know if you saw the game. I saw the last quarter against Cleveland the other night when they beat them on that Sunday, that unbelievable fourth quarter and overtime. They've changed the starting lineup. They've gotten with Hardaway and Prince, the younger guys in the starting lineup. Bazemore comes out of the lineup. Cephalosha. They've got a lot of confidence off the last few games. I'm telling you, chemistry-wise, they've never been in a better spot. They're back to sharing the ball, playing that kind of San Antonio of the East thing. You know what? Washington has problems on the road. They got a losing road record now. I know they've beaten them, I think, 3 out of 4 or whatever this year. I just got a sneaky suspicion Atlanta could win in a 7-game series, believe it or not, because, it's just one of those deals. I'm not completely trusting of Washington. They don't have a lot of depth, and I think Atlanta right now, they're catching them at the wrong time.
Mitch Lawrence, longtime NBA columnist, now on Sirius XM NBA Radio, Sporting News, Forbes, and the NBA playoffs right here on 97.3 ESPN. They kick off on Saturday. Mitch, always enjoy it, pal.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, man.